To start off, I haven't been completely honest with you. There actually isn't a sea urchin which lived forever, but perhaps there could be. So this past fall, I spent some time in Bermuda at the Bermuda Institute of Ocean Sciences with Dr. Audrey Bodner. There, we used the sea urchin as a model system to understand human health and aging. Now, you may not think about the sea urchin as a model system to understand human health or aging. Perhaps you think about it as an animal with lots of spines on its head, or when you're walking around, you step on the reef and it really hurts your feet. Maybe that's what you think about when you think about sea urchins. But it turns out sea urchins have some incredible powers of regeneration, and they also can live for quite a long time. In fact, one species, Strongylus introtus franciscanus, has been shown to live up to 200 years old, and to get to be very, very large. Now, how many of you in the audience know someone who's lived up to 200 years old? Any humans? Probably not. But the interesting thing is that sea urchins and humans share about 70% of the same proteins. So there's these similar molecular tools there available, but somehow sea urchins are using them differently. So we want to go back to this question of regeneration. And I like to start with this quote by Richard Goss. He once said that if everything regenerated, there could be no death. If nothing regenerated, there could be no life, but that everything existed between these two extremes. So while you're wrapping your head around that quote, it just sounds nice, but I want you instead to take a look at your arm. Take a look at your arm. If you got a cut on your arm, the skin would regrow. It would regenerate. You wouldn't just start growing a new arm. Regeneration is a very controlled process. In fact, if I spontaneously lost my arm, it wouldn't regrow. I'm not a superhuman, unfortunately. But there are some superhumans in the ocean. They're known as sea stars. If they lose an arm, they can regenerate it. Turns out they're actually related to sea urchins. Let's take another relative of the sea urchin, the sea cucumber. The sea cucumber is attacked. It gets scared. It'll eviscerate. It'll throw up its stomach contents and then run off as fast as a sea cucumber can run. It can't run very fast. But it's able then to regrow its entire stomach contents. That's not an easy task to do. So what about sea urchins and regeneration? It's not as clear. What's the interesting regeneration thing they're doing? Well, I told you earlier that they can live for a long time. If we think about the aging process as a sort of functional decline over time, as we get older, we get kind of sore, it's harder to wake up in the morning, things aren't working out as well. But what if you were a sea urchin and you could replace those lost or damaged tissues? It turns out perhaps they're doing that, and we have evidence that suggests that sea urchins indeed are replacing old or damaged tissues. So not only do they have this incredible capacity for regeneration, but as we move forward, sea urchins may be a valuable model for understanding human health and aging. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is ocean science for human good.
Thank you, Paul. Judges, you ready?
So you made the point that nobody's lived to be 200 years old. How do we know these sea urchins are living to be 200 years old?
It's a very good question. The answer actually lies in something we kind of know a little bit about. You know that we can date tree rings, and it turns out the sea urchin test actually has similar information. There are actually rings you can read on a sea urchin test. And not too many people are very good at it, but there's someone at Oregon State University who's very good at it. He's been aging urchins for a very long time. So we're going to go with his estimates, and we're pretty sure he's right.
Has he been dating urchins?
After that long, maybe.
Was that your question? No, right. Okay.
You had a really nice use of humor throughout your talk, so I applaud you for that. It was a fun talk to listen to. Are there many species out there that regenerate themselves like sea urchins do?
I think there's quite a variety of regeneration just in general in the invertebrate world. There's a lot of other examples that I didn't touch on. In particular, in sea urchins, one simple thing of regeneration that you do see is tube feet. They have these little sticky tube feet that they can actually regenerate rather quickly. Lost spines they can regenerate. So definitely in the echinoderms, there's some pretty striking examples of regeneration, but many different invertebrate species have these abilities of regeneration in one capacity or another.
And what's the theory about how they came by these superpowers of regeneration?
Yeah, that's a good question, because to an extent, if regeneration goes too far, then you're running into something like cancer. Cancer is uncontrolled regeneration. So there's clearly some sort of limitation to at which point regeneration is beneficial and at which point it's too much. And I think so far there's been enough pressure on these types of animals that regeneration hasn't gotten out of control. But I would be curious to see if you raised a sea urchin in an environment where there weren't any predators and there was an available food source, I would guess it would live for a pretty long time and keep regenerating.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to ask the 10-year-old boy question. So if I take a sea star, how much of it could I rip off and it would still regenerate?
In the spirit of joyful learning,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Well, if you were to do that, which would be a very sad thing, but if you were, as far as I know, I believe you can actually, not only if you were to take a sea star, and you were to take one of its arms off, not only will it regrow that arm, but sometimes that arm can regrow another sea star. Yeah, and that's also, I mean, there's a huge variety in the sea stars as well as like brittle stars. They actually will lose their arms almost all the time, and it's just kind of something that happens. It's very natural. The arm runs off. It's not an issue.
I don't think I've seen the judges look so stymied yet. Thank you very much, Paul. That's wonderful.